Um, I, our other speaker for this session is Father Edward Thomas. He was, until recent, the member of the Karnataka State Commission for Protection of Child Rights and continues to be a member of the State Expert Committee on Protection of Children from Sexual Offences and Governing Council member of the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan DWCD Government of Karnataka. Alongside, he also serves as advisor and member to several government and non-government committees and institutions in the country. For several years, he was Executive Director, Bangalore, Oniyarvara Seva Kuta, Bosco. He has worked extensively in the sector of child rights, building networks, partnerships, and provisioning safe spaces for children.
Good afternoon. About 7 years back, I was in the selection committee for the juvenile functionaries. It was for CWC, Child Welfare Committee. One candidate came and we are supposed to ask some few questions. I asked, what is CWC? And she said, concern for working children. Yeah, she came for CWC Child Welfare Committee selection and she said, concern for working children. I was quite interested and asked her, why do you say that? How you got this? Yeah, years back they have come to our district and had a workshop or something, I attended it. Today I would like to really congratulate Concern for Working Children, not because you are doing the national consultation, because you have been with the children. You have been traveling with them. Don Bosco used to say, it is not enough to love the children, they should know they are loved. And I am very sure that Concern for Working Children has communicated very strongly to the working children of Karnataka, we are with you. And congratulations, and we are also with you for all your initiatives. Now coming to the topic, she told me, just share, I have been here, Karnataka Child Right Commission for 3 years. And if you ask me for the experience, I will, that needs maybe about, a day to share all my experience, horror experience of being in the Child Right Commission. I shall not do that. But I would like to share little of my experience dealing with children. Now, when I dealt with CWC, Concern for Working Children, beginning also I had some issues with them. I thought, there have been ideologies are very different, and I was also trying to be a little far away from them. But knowing them very clearly, hearing them, and attending their own workshops, I understood them very well. And because they always say, child labor, rescue, law, and policy is supposed to be the tip of the iceberg. And don't deal with the iceberg, the tip. Don't deal with, treat the symptoms, but let us look at the entire background, how this child labor has come. And I think, today, CWC is angry, Concern for Working Children is very aggressive and angry. It is because they are very sure that, there is something behind the entire system. If you don't deal with this, it's going to be a big issue for them. So every one of us who are working in the system knows that education plays a vital role, when you look at this particular child labor. Now, when you are looking at Karnataka and the education system that we have, maybe the education institutions, especially with the government schools, now it's going to be a huge problem. Retaining the child in the school itself has become a big issue. If you don't deal with this, dealing with the child labor issue, dealing with the NCLP issue, and is not going to do anything. So how we are going to ensure quality in the government schools? And as a commission member, I had gone to visit some schools, and I still remember one school, we have visited 6th standard children. They are not even able to read and write. They are not able to literally, they are not able to read. And how this child is going to 7th standard, and we have all promotion is there, and they'll be pushed to 7th standard, and they continue to be there, and they cannot read. This is a situation in which we are dealing. And, thousands of schools with less than 10 children. And when you go to the NGOs will say, don't close them, retain them. Having a hope that more children will come. All these private schools, English medium education schools will be closed, and we are going to have a good time and keep on there. With the 10 children, what are you going to do? I visited a place, school, there are only 2 teachers with 15 children. And there have been circles written, first circle, second circle, third circle. And each circle there are 1 or 2. One is the 2 of them in the first standard, one of them in the second standard. And how are you going to ensure quality of education? 15 children. And somebody went for closing that one and said, okay, we'll merge it to another. Some NGOs came and said, no. What are you going to do this? So this is a huge issue regarding the merger of schools, and I think we need to really thrash it out, this particular issue. Now, infrastructure. Now, Minister was saying according to the RTE, I think time is already getting on, that all the infrastructure has to be developed. I think we need to really sit down. I've been in a place in hospital for 3 years, and just recently I think 4 days back I went there. I just made a visit and found the old schools within 1 kilometer of jurisdiction, there had been 5 schools. Again with a few children. Why this government thinking of, just merge them? And I asked, in fact, there's a Don Bosco institution with a few acres of land. I said, Don Bosco institution, please donate this land to the government and let them put up a very good infrastructure so that these 5 schools could be merged. Otherwise, our education system is going to be very bad. And these children, I know they are the same situation. Now, the pathetic situation of our officers, our BUOs and DDPIs and people concerned. Absolutely no. Many of them have no commitment. And it seems one BUO said, I was in a real financial crisis. Now RT has come as a lottery for me. It is true. RT has become a lottery for everyone. Now every 3 years you have to renew and a renewing process. And I have seen people coming and saying, especially one sister told me, Father, what can I do? Tomorrow I have to give this much amount. Otherwise my paper will not be passed. My file will not be pushed. And every file has to be moved, money has to be paid. This is a pathetic situation of our country. And how we are going to deal with it. And some of them are like vultures, vultures. Vultures, waiting for opportunity. They are not looking at the children, and we have top officers changing every now and then. And some of them don't want to come to the education department. That's a huge problem. Because some of the ministers and MLAs and MPs, they don't want to deal with the problem because they have a huge set of institutions where they don't want to touch upon. And we have talked about now, the fees has been fixed. Government made some circular and they went to the court. Now what is happening in the education department is that every question the department raises and people are up in the court and remains a stay. So this is a problem with the entire education system of our state. And what has happened to our poor children? And they get the last ones going to the schools. They continue to be there, and at a particular moment they pushed out. And we have the huge system. We have a NCLP and SCLP, which has also become a failure. Now we have some accountability has to be created. If you look at POCSO Act, non-registration of complaint, there's a sanction. The police doesn't, report, or if there is no report, or the police don't take the same way, I think somehow or the other, the third standard should be, a child who is studying in third standard, I think what he or she should know. If they don't know, the teachers has to be held accountable, and child should not be allowed to push on. There is no use of pushing on. And Kerala, I'm very happy, I visited a few of the schools, very happy. Aadhaar has been linked into the attendance, Aadhaar card. That means every child is linked with the Aadhaar number. Now, just recently I visited one child. The child was already 1 year in the home. Child was taken to the school and found his attendant is alive. He is still alive in the register book of the school. Because there is nobody to question. This child is there and they keep on attendance. Because if there are less number, the class will be removed. So keep on the numbers. So one of the things I think we need to really push forward is that linking. If Kerala can do that, I think we can easily do that. And they are also looking at, in this particular area, how many children are linked with Aadhaar, and where are these children? If they are not at the school, they are trying to track them. And another one is transportation of children. When why these schools, when I'm talking about the merging of the school also, if there are no schools sufficient children are available, I think transportation of children has to be made into this pattern. So there should be work in the Department of Transportation and the education has to really work together. Another one is actually, now RT has exempted. Again, example now, madrasas and Vedic institutions and minority institutions has been exempted. And I don't think that people are not sure what is the exemption means. Now there has been MHRD has given an order that all the children who is supposed to be in madrasas should be admitted in the nearby schools. Now they are no more going to support madrasas. Earlier madrasas used to be supported. Now one thing I have found actually, whether it's a Christian, Hindu or Muslim, nobody should take advantage of the vulnerability of the child when it comes to education. I do not know, somehow or the other, I have seen this government is bending on looking at the religion. I don't think nobody should bend. And what's the meaning of Vedic education? What's the meaning of madrasa education where education is not defined? What should be the content of the education has to be defined, and exemption doesn't mean, for example, when minorities are exempted from education, doesn't mean any type of education necessary. The education has to be defined. So, as I mentioned, religion, they should really take care. They should not take advantage of the vulnerability of the child, and it has to be defined. When a child is in the 10th standard, child should have an option to take any career he or she wants. I think we need to really look into this. Now this madrasas issue which has come, nobody talks about it. We need to check whether these children are enrolled in the nearby schools, or the child is able to, after studying from madrasas, where the child is able to go for a mainstream, where the child wants. This is called child rights. Now, all promotion is a very good idea. But now that has become a pattern for the teachers, whether they study or they don't study, all are promoted. And when you're looking at the 10th standard or the 9th standard, they will not be able to go up anymore. So what we need to do, actually speaking, a micro planning is required. Each taluk or each gram panchayat, the civil society and the government need to really come together and say, yes, what is happening? I don't think such a concerted effort of NGOs and the government coming together in a gram panchayat level, and we need to really plan how many schools we need, what is the infrastructure we need, where you need to merge it. I think NGOs also have to be concerned, not enough to say, just remaining back and say no. I remember we had a meeting together with all the NGOs. I think about 9 speakers were there, always speaking, the children should be sent to government school. I said I'll speak at the end. And I prepared one child to ask. Luckily, I don't have children. I asked where your children are studying. All the children are studying in English medium school, and we say that please send them to government school. I said if I had a child, surely I will not send them to a government school. You make sure that the government school reach up that standard, surely I will be sending my child. I think we need to make a concerted effort in the particular district. We need to have that quality and the infrastructure. If you are really cared for, surely the education system will really work. Now we are talking about NCLP and SCLP. We have a lot of consultation. The anger which came out from the NGOs is terrible. There is absolutely no professionalism in these particular projects and program. The project is very good, excellent. Objectives are very good. But the way that it is implemented. Now, some of these NGOs take this is as a mainstream. The mainstream is supposed to be the school. And we can have exception, somebody is working outside, and these children should be trained and put in. But I don't know how they view it. And there is a huge nexus between the NGOs and the government. Huge nexus. And some of these projects, one NGO friend has been very open. He has told me, Father, I have several projects. But without paying 30% in the central government, you will never get a project. Can you just imagine? You pay 30%. And somebody was telling him, Father, one day central government, they came, shouted and yelled, and I gave little money, and they were very happy, and we have a very good report. A nexus that happens between the government. I'm not saying all of them, but many of them are involved in this nexus between NGOs and government. And another one is NCLP program. After signing the MOU, signing the MOU, it is like a lottery. You may get the money, you may not get the money. I went Belgaum. From 2009, from NCLP project, they have not received the money. And that's why you continue the program. Now how they continue? Are they able to continue? Even if they continue, they were not very sure. Where should continue the program? And just about 3-4 months back, hearing this complaint, I called up to Joint Commissioner for Labor. I said, sir, what are you doing? I said, sir, many of these NGOs, they are not doing work. And they are, simply running the program. I said, for that you should be questioned. You know what is professionalism? You know there are labor inspectors in each district. And if they are not doing well, blacklist them, send them out. But you cannot say at the end of the program they are not doing well after signing the MOU. And they are not to get a single pie. Anyway, I called him, in front of all the NGOs and made him to promise, whatever it may be, before 31st. So all the NCLP program of Karnataka government is already given, whether they have worked. And many of these NGOs told, we have not worked because we were not very sure that whether we will get the money. This is the question, lack of professionalism that these people have. Now what I feel is actually, when you're looking at this particular NCLP, SCLP program, now I came to know that no NCLP and SCLP programs are happening across the state. Now some of the districts, with the help of the Deputy Commissioner, they are pushing forward. What is the meaning of all this? So this has become, there's a policy is there, but somehow or the other, there is no system, there is no professionalism. So what we need to do is, maybe in a particular district or taluk, we may have to develop centers for education. It is not that, by beginning of the month, and you can also imagine, by March we have the financial year starts. Then they will call for application for these projects. It will continue for 2-3 months. By the time they make the MOU, I think it's 6 months. After making the MOU, NGOs are not very sure you will get the money. So this situation. So I think it is better that we create centers of learning, maybe in the district level or on the taluk level, 2-3 places identified, so wherever child laborers are there, it has been integrated. But at the same time, I am very sure if our mainstream education is not cared for, as they are very angry, nothing is going to happen. Now, I would like to see a country. People say from America, just recently one of our priests had gone to Rome. He was telling he was holding a very responsible position in India, and he had a lot of workers, a lot of people hanging around to help him. When he went to Rome for work, he said, there is not even a secretary. I have to do the entire work by myself. When you look at the developed countries, they have to, even if they are highly professional, they have to cook by themselves. They have to wash their clothes. We need to have an India of that sort. We shall not have these categories of people. Some are, on the fourth degree, on which, doing the Shudra work. I don't think we have Shudras in India. We have to look at a country where we give education to everyone, and that's a starting point of development. Yesterday I had met a person from Oman, and he said the king who was taken about 30 years back, he made a decision, 3 decisions. I will make sure that education, health, and roads, transportation. These are these key points, and if you look at that particular country, and he was trying his best. The same way, when you're looking at our country, when you're looking at this child labor issue, when you are looking at, let us make a concerted effort, NGOs, the government, civil society organizations, not on a large scale like, we are talking in a classroom like this. Let us go to the taluk. Let us call up to these NGOs. Let us go to the government departments. Ask them what the plan that we can look at the mainstream education. And another one, actually, we have this DCPU, District Child Protection Unit, and ICPS. I have been also a member of ICPS society. When I met the Chief Secretary and all the secretaries, I also made this request. Sir, please ask your secretaries who are supposed to be members of ICPS, come for the meeting. If somebody can make a study, how many of his department has attended the ICPS meeting, supposed to be managed by the Principal Secretary of Women and Child? They all send their representatives for ICPS society meetings where major decisions are being made. So I think they should be the one who is converge the entire, entire services that has to be rendered for children. Absolutely, that will become a failure. Now, when you go to the district level, it is supposed to be DCPC, District Child Protection Committee. Where are these committees? Usually, the DCPU, District Child Protection Unit, he is who is the person making decisions. They cannot make decisions. The DCPU is supposed to DCPC is supposed to look at all the program that is running, including for education. Maybe the education department, out of school children, SSA, the child laborer program, NCLP and SCLP, a large scale of NGOs working in that particular district. Then let them come together, make a plan for education. I think that would be the way that I would look at. Madam, is it time? Madam, is it time? Time up already. Yeah. So let's all work together. And I feel that concern for working children was really concern for working children. Let us join in hands with them, because I found them very aggressive, and people are also angry with them. Let them be angry. There is no problem. Please face it. We are all with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Father, I never knew you were avoiding us initially, but anyway, interesting to hear that. Yeah, but thank you. We'll open the floor now for feedback and responses. Arlene and Father Edward, if you could come here. It could be either responses to them or your own thoughts related to the two issues we discussed, JJ response and responsive education to children. Yes, Dunu and then Damu.
I have three stories, three pieces of information to offer to build the context. The first one is regarding agriculture. There's something called the minimum support price, which the government is supposed to declare for all crops. Every year it's declared. Currently, the minimum support price is half of the actual expenditure incurred by the farm. So all farmers are going into debt because they are not able to recover. This is essentially, therefore, immiserization of the peasantry. And something is happening in Maharashtra which would be of interest to Karnataka. Farmers who are deserting agriculture, the lands are now being taken over by Reliance under a program called Beej. And Reliance is now going to do corporate agriculture on those lands. So this is a transfer of public resources into private hands, and this is happening by policy in water, electricity, education, health, all the services that government runs. Withdrawal of funds from these services. The second one is, I don't know if you know, since 1990, by the pressure of the creditors abroad, the government of India has issued a notice to all government departments not to do fresh recruitments. So police, teachers, clerks, lawyers, everywhere in government service, the numbers are coming down. Doctors, they're actually coming down. So your implementation mechanism for all these laws, like the committees, the district committees, there are no people to man the district committees. See, we blame the teacher for not working. What we are not looking at is that by policy, government has made sure that teachers don't work because there are not enough teachers. There are not enough doctors. These are two aspects of the retreat of the state by policy. Now, if I take the presentation earlier and even your presentation, by law, as far as our understanding of rights goes, actually should not the state be held accountable? I mean, they should be prosecuted for making these policies and for, in a sense, shrinking back on welfare services. Nobody does this. Nobody holds government accountable. See, we are talking about the teacher's accountability. Why is he not working? We are not talking about government's accountability for not appointing teachers by policy. And the last bit I would like to place before you, because there's a great belief in the law. The public interest litigation, as you are probably well aware, which was passed after the emergency. I mean, it came into being after the emergency. Courts started taking cognizance of services not being provided, rights being violated. One of the necessary conditions of public interest litigation is that it has to be non-adversarial. That means you can't hold the state accountable anymore. You have to work with the state to remedy the situation. Now, I find this a very peculiar, that the state is responsible for the situation, but you can't hold the state responsible. So in this context, I would be interested in knowing from both of you, how do you propose to bring about accountability in implementation?
Thank you for the good presentation, Kavita. ಒಂದು ನಾನು ಆರ್ಲಿನ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಮತ್ತು ಅದರ ಒಂದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ರೆಕಮೆಂಡೇಷನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಸಲಹೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಇಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಒಂದು ನೀವು ಅಕೌಂಟೆಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡುವಾಗ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಎನ್ನುವಾಗ ಖಂಡಿತ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಅದು ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಿದ್ದರೂ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೋಸ್ಕರ ವಿಶೇಷ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ವಿಕೇಂದ್ರೀಕರಣದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಸ್ಥಳೀಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಪೂರಕವಾಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು ಈ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಗಳು ಅವರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಸಂಪನ್ಮೂಲಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಇದು ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಪರಿಣಾಮಕಾರಿ ಆಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಪ್ಲೀಸ್. ಮತ್ತು ಈಗ ಇರುವ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ನಮಗೆ ಕೊರತೆ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಅಂತ ತೋರ್ತಾ ಇರುವುದು, ಇದು ಒಂದು ತೀರಾ ಕೇಂದ್ರೀಕೃತವಾಗಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು ಮತ್ತು ಯಾರೋ ಒಂದು ಮಾಡಿದ ಕ್ರೈಟೀರಿಯಾ ಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಆಗಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಅದು ಚೈಲ್ಡ್ ವೆಲ್ಫೇರ್ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಫಿಟ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು ಯಾವುದು. ಆದರೆ ಅವರು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯನ್ನು ನಾನು ರೂಪಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಫಿಟ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಅನ್ನು ಯಾರೋ CWCನೋ ಮತ್ತಾರೋ ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಿಂತ ನಮ್ಮ ಹಳ್ಳಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾರು ನಮ್ಮ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಇರ್ತಾನೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥದ್ದು ಸಾಧ್ಯತೆಗಳಿದ್ರೆ ಬಹುಶಃ ಇದು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಪರಿಣಾಮಕಾರಿಯಾಗಿ ಬೀರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಥಳೀಯವಾಗಿ ನಿರ್ಧಾರ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥದ್ದು ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆದರೆ ಸ್ಥಳೀಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ, ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ದುನ್ನರಾಯವರದ್ದು ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಅಕೌಂಟಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಿತ್ತು. ನನ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅದು ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಅಥವಾ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ನಾವು ಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇದೆಯೋ ಏನೋ, ಅದು ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಒಂದು ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದಿನ ದಾರಿ ಆದೀತು. ಆದರೆ ಸ್ಥಳೀಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರಗಳನ್ನ ಇದೆ ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾದ ಸಂಪನ್ಮೂಲಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂಥ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗಳನ್ನ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ರೂಪಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರಾಮ ಸಭೆಗಳು ನಡೀತವೆ. ಮತ್ತು ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಈಗ ನಾವು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಗ್ರಾಮ ಸಭೆ ನಡೆಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೇ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆಗ ಅವ್ರು ನಿಜವಾಗಿಯೂ ಉತ್ತರ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾದ ಅನಿವಾರ್ಯ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಏನಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಬೆನಿಫಿಷರಿಯನ್ನ ಗ್ರಾಮ ಸಭೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಕೂಡ ವಸತಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ವಿಷಯಕ್ಕೂ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಗ್ರಾಮ ಸಭೆಗೆ ಬರೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಗ್ರಾಮ ಸಭೆಯ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಒಂದು ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್ ಕಾರಣ ಯಾಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿದೆ ಈ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಏನೂ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋಲ್ಲ, ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ MLA MP ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ಒಂದು ಸಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತೀರ್ಮಾನಗಳಾಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಂಗೆ ರಿಹ್ಯಾಬಿಲಿಟೇಷನ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ದುಡಿಯೋ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ನಿಜವಾದ ಹತ್ತಿರದ ಸತ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಹತ್ತಿರುವಂತ ತೀರ್ಮಾನಗಳನ್ನ ಮತ್ತು ಕೊನೆ ಪಕ್ಷ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗಬೇಕಾದ ಹಣಕಾಸುಗಳ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಒಂದು ಸೌಕರ್ಯಗಳು ಆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ಕುಟುಂಬಕ್ಕೆ ತಲುಪಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆದಿತ್ತು. ಆದ್ರಿಂದ ರೆಕಮೆಂಡೇಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವದ ವಿಕೇಂದ್ರೀಕರಣ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಥಳೀಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಇದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಕೊಡುವಂತಹದ್ದನ್ನ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನನಗೆ ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
One of the biggest problems we face has been the very, very strongly centralized structure of all of these. That in terms of the decisions which are made, which are very centralized, the criteria which are set for even things like fit person, institution or child welfare committee members, all are centralized. The selection process is centralized. So everything is centralized. And to expect such a centralized system chosen from elsewhere to become accountable to children, that does not even work in terms of a mechanism. So when Dunu talked about, this holding governments accountable, Dama says, I'm not sure how much we can hold the state or central government accountable in terms of mechanisms, but in terms of local self-government, that is certainly possible, provided that it is children and communities actually setting the criteria of who they would want to see in that child welfare committee, that they're actually part of that selection process, that there are resources made available to them to also manage them or in a way control how they're functioning. Then accountability becomes a built-in mechanism, that accountability becomes mandatory because they're answerable. In terms of what's happening now in terms of the Gram Sabhas, for example, except for housing and housing beneficiaries, for no other Gram Sabhas people turn up there because whatever decisions are taken in the Gram Sabhas are being reversed because an MLA says something or an MP says something. So the people also don't recognize that as a power center anymore in terms of the way it is functioning. But if they actually become empowered, and our recommendations look at that empowering of the local self-governments with mandate and with resources, then the kind of systems we have in place, for example, the children's Gram Sabhas in Karnataka, where that kind of mechanism comes in, then it is actually possible to have a system which is child rights friendly, is responding to the needs of children, and is responding to the rights of children. It's possible to look at that.
I think he was. I'll
You want
respond.
to respond or?
This was just an experience that I had in documenting one of the so-called successful child labor freeing projects. And all the presentations made today morning kind of added up into what my experience also said. This was a child labor project that was within a community. And the child labor was being practiced within the silk factories. And after this whole successful project was over, we were documenting the experiences of children. And we realized that over time, since the basic issues were not resolved, poverty was not resolved, some of the indicators being taken was enrollment to school. And enrollment to school was, in one sense, successfully fulfilled. That criteria indicator showed very good success rate. At the same time, child labor in the factories was not there in the day. But the same children were working from 5 to 9 in the morning and again from 5 to 9 in the evening. So as far as everybody was concerned, the government was happy with enrollment rates. The factories were happy with cheap labor. The parents had somehow accommodated with all these laws and worked around it for survival. But if you looked at the children, most of them were not happy. I mean, when you look at child rights, that seemed to be a total failure. So you have a project that's so successful, that's being documented and shared by the government, shared by many agencies, saying succeed, and then the whole thing falls on its face when it comes to children. So one of the indicators that have been mentioned right across is to document the voices of children. In any of these implementing procedures and process, if that can be made compulsory, whether the adults agree to it or not is not the issue. It should be documented and it should be said, I mean, it has to be there for its own, with dignity to be recorded, so that at least in the next process or somewhere it would be heard. Because we can't guarantee that children would always say something that adults will agree to and then put it. So can it be there as children's voices?
We'll do two, one here and then one Praveen, and then response, and then we'll break for tea.
Yeah, I was just listening to the entire process of decentralization that you were sharing, and I think this is the ICPS, that Integrated Child Protection Scheme. It has spoken about the village level child protection committee and the block level child protection committee. At the same time, it talks about children's participation at the VLCPC and at the block level. And it also mentions about a kind of convergence in the sense that the education, the health, and all this ICDS department, so all these people are the members, official members of VLCPC and BLCPC. And one of the key mandate is also to do the listing of all the vulnerable children who are eligible for sponsorship and foster care, and that money then should be granted from the DCPS. So how do you see the potential of these committees, which ICPS talks about, in making a community-based safety net mechanism?
ಕವಿತಕ್ಕ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ನಾವು ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ವಿ ಸೇಫ್ ಮತ್ತು ಅನ್ಸೇಫ್ ಕೆಲಸದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಒಂದೇ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಬಟ್ ನನ್ನ ಅನಿಸಿಕೆ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಒಂದೇ ಆಗಿರಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಕೆಲವು ಕೆಲಸಗಳು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ದೈಹಿಕವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಅದು ಅನ್ಸೇಫೇ, ಅದು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗಿರ್ಬೋದು ದೊಡ್ಡವ್ರಿಗೂ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಆ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಎರಡು ರೀತಿ ನೋಡಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ವಿಷಯ, ಈಗ ನಾವು ಎಜುಕೇಷನ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಏನು ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತು ಅವರು ಕೂಡ ಆ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು, ಅವರ ಹಕ್ಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಆದರೆ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಏನು ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯೆನ್ಸಲ್ಲೇ ಹೇಳೋದಾದರೆ, ನಾನು ನೋಡಿರೋ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಈಗ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ 10ನೇ ಕ್ಲಾಸಲ್ಲಿ ಫೇಲ್ ಆದೆ ಅಂತ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಜನ ಸುಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋತಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಒಬ್ಬ ದುಡಿಯೋ ಮಗು ನನಗೆ ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ಹೋಗೋಕ್ಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಥವಾ ನಾನು ದುಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಮನೇಲಿ ಕಷ್ಟ ಅಂತ ಸುಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋಂಥದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಕೂಡ ಉದಾಹರಣೆನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ನಾವು ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಪಡಿತೇವೆ ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. ನಾನು ಕೂಡ ಶಾಲೆ ಹೋಗುವಾಗ ನಾವು ರಜೆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಟ್ಲಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೆ. ಸೊ ನಮಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಹೊರಗಿನ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು, ಹೇಗೆ ಬದುಕಬೇಕು ಅಂಥದ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಕೂಡ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಬರೀ ಶಾಲೆ ಹೋಗೋದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಓದೋದು ಕಲಿಯೋದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ನಾವು ದಿನನಿತ್ಯ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅದು ಕೂಡ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಬರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಳವಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕು. ಈಗ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ, ಬರೀ ಓದೋದು ಅಷ್ಟು ಬಿಟ್ಟರೆ ಬೇರೇನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಈಗ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಜನ ಬಿ ಆದವರು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಡಿಗ್ರಿ ತೊಗೊಂಡವ್ರು ಕೆಲಸ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಅಲಿತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
Actually, you said one point that education is not defined. Now, the government say that when education, right to education, they mean to say there is a curriculum that is already there in the mainstream education. So, government is thinking about that's education right now. Now, when you are talking about ICPS, one more point that you have mentioned, that is safe work and unsafe work. I think from the context it has been defined. Though the government has listed what are unsafe and what is safe, it is listed. It's all depending upon the environment that is being created. Maybe a safe work can be in an unsafe environment, can be already unsafe. So it's all how we are going to interpret. Now we have also talking about how many hours children can work. I don't think a single case has been booked, where such a control is being mentioned. Okay, how many hours child can work? So what you are saying is very true. Unsafe and safe has to be defined in the circumstances in which a particular activity is being made. Now you are talking about, I think some of the things which I have not touched, you just look at. Next one, ICPS mechanism. The government actually thought of having a ministry for children. There have been a lot of discussion came. Then they said, let's not have a ministry because many of these programs, especially with mother and child, it is linked program. So let's not have a program, ministry for children alone. Let us have a project. So there have been a lot of discussions on integrated child protection project, and a mission mode has been created. When he was talking about the accountability. I think if you look at the ICPS, this is supposed to be from grassroots. It is supposed to be. But the problem is that the implementation. We have people on top right now, for example, Women and Child Secretary itself changed so many times. We have about 8 people changed from Service Shiksha Abhiyan directorship. So any person who comes there to make a real plan, before he comes itself, he may look, oh, I may get a transfer. So ICPS can really work, provided all the DCPs convergence really work on. Right now, I personally feel that we have a secretary who has come, very active. I think we should be able to work in a mission mode. ICPS will work with its, with all the dreams which it had in Karnataka. I'm talking about right now on Karnataka. When it is going to be a national consultation, yes, each state has to really work on that.
Okay, I'd like to,
ನಾನು ಯಾಕೆ ಮಿಷನ್ ಮೋಡ್ದು ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟನ್ನು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ, ಈಗ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ಸೆಕ್ರೆಟರಿದಾಗ ಬಂದರೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ನೀವು ಪ್ಯಾರಲಲ್ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ಪ್ಯಾರಲಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇದು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು, ನೀವು ಬಾಟಮ್ ಅಪ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆಯಿಂದಲೇ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬನ್ನಿ, ಆದರೆ ಅದು ಯಾವುದೇ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರು ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಆಗಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಸ್ಥಳೀಯ ಗ್ರಾಮ ಪಂಚಾಯತ್ಗೆ ಅವರು ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಆಗಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವರು ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಆಗಿರೋದು ಅವ್ರ ಹೈಯರ್ ಅಥಾರಿಟಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ. ಆದರೆ ಆ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಗ್ರಾಮ ಪಂಚಾಯತಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರಾಮ ಸಭೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಮತ್ತು ದೊಡ್ಡವರು ಸೇರಿ ಇಂಥವರೆಲ್ಲ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಮಿಷನ್ಗಳು ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಗಳು ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಈಗ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಈಗ ಇರುವ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಗೆ, ಈವನ್ ಸರ್ವಶಿಕ್ಷಾ ಅಭಿಯಾನ್ ಈಗ ಇರುವ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಗೆ ಪ್ಯಾರಲಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಬ್ಯೂರೋಕ್ರಾಟಿಕ್ಗೆ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿದೆ, ಅದು ಯಾವುದೇ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ನನ್ನ ಊರಲ್ಲಿ ಶಾಲೆ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ನಡೆಯೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯ ಪಂಚಾಯತ್ ಗ್ರಾಮ ಸಭೆಯವರು ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟಿಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಕೆಟ್ಟ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಆ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರಾಮ ಸಭೆ ಬಂದಿಂದ ಬಾರದೇ ಇದ್ದರೂ ಕೂಡ ಏನೂ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದರೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಡಿಬೋದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ ವಿನಃ, ಆದರೆ ಅವರು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಾಗಿ ಅವರು ಜನರಿಗೆ ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ಯಾರಿಗ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ತಲುಪಬೇಕೋ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅಕೌಂಟೇಬಲ್ ಆಗದೆ ಎಷ್ಟೇ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಿದರೂ ಕೂಡ ಅದು ಪ್ರಾಮಾಣಿಕತೆಗೆ ಸತ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಹತ್ತಿರ ಇರೋದು ತುಂಬ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಅನುಭವ.
So right now you have mentioned, especially the Gram Panchayat itself, the members are elected from a...
the point, Damu's translation, that the reason why I'm opposed to this kind of a mission or a project mode has been because even it might work sometimes well, it might appear to work well if there is a good officer who's not transferred, who's in place, but still the structure is top up and it functions as a parallel system with no accountability to the local elected government. The way the system is functioning now is that even in a village, if a school is not working well, the panchayat cannot take action. They have to report to the Department of Education. And the department has to do whatever they need to do. And actually, there is no way even to make sure that the department members' representatives attend the Gram Sabha even. So it's like a parallel system. In some places, it may appear to work well if the people concerned are effective, etc. But the mechanism does not allow it to be accountable. The system doesn't make it accountable. So that is the challenge, and that is why it is opposed.
We are working with not only micro, we are working with the macro. When you are working with the macro systems, there should be system that has to be available. Now what has happened to our country is that, whatever system that we have, for example, even the entitlements that is supposed to be received by one person, the local people are not aware. And nobody questions. Even for example, a small system like child marriage, prohibition we are talking about, there are not trusted persons. Now what is happening with our own system? Today everyone is frightened of taking a mobile and say, in my neighborhood there is a child marriage. Because he is frightened where my mobile will be, somebody will share. So somehow or the other, I agree with what you are talking. But when you are looking at a macro level, how far it has been successful. Now we are looking at local governments, elected representatives. And if you look at the elected representative of any of our country, I do not know how such an amount of money they make. They will also continue to do the same system. So within the system that has been built, surely If the local governance is able to take on that level, excellent, I think can work together.
Just a clarification. I think there's a confusion between accountability of implementing agencies and accountability of policy making. There's a difference. You see, you might announce Swachh Bharat, but the sanitation budget has come down. Right to education has been announced, education budget has come down. Right to health has been announced, health budget has been come down. Budget is not a implementing issue. Budget is a policy making issue. So how do you build that accountability of who's making these policies and allotting money and personnel for carrying out these things?
I'd like to start actually with the last slide of my presentation, which I just, it was a little fuss of an ending. So if you can just put up that last slide, because I think that's capturing what I'm trying to say as a response to most of these questions. In my understanding, the Juvenile Justice Act is not a preventive legislation. It does not address root causes. It does not enable rehabilitation in the sense that it is meant to genuinely enable. It is in fact incapacitating in every sense of the word. So the last slide is something basically talking about what we need is a justice system that enables justice to children. Not justice in a vague sense, which is some decision making that has no real implication to the quality of life of a young child. And I say this both in the context of a juvenile in conflict with law and a child in need of care and protection. This is the second but last, but it's fine. Democracies are not only sought in the public sphere, they are created within the emotional intimacies of private social worlds. These worlds present the child with new challenges for the recognition and realization of their rightful autonomy and agency. Need to address power, which underlies all the core principles and characterizes the relationship between children and adults. This is a quote from Mary John, Children's Rights and Power. Now the last slide. How do we change the balance of power in favor of children, especially those who are marginalized, excluded, in trauma, and in fear? By ensuring justice to children and families, we are building the foundation of a society that respects the constitutional values of justice, equality, and freedom for all, for generations to come. So having said that, I am one of the people, I don't think I have this overwhelming belief in the law as an instrument of social change. I am critical of it, and I try to, in fact, minimize the systemic pain that causes to children by being processed through a legal system. And I'm trying to fight for how do you ensure that these legal systems, which are anyway in place, can become not just child-friendly, but a term that Kavita gave us in one of our rulemaking exercises. Child-friendly, yes, but child rights-friendly system and procedures. So coming to this whole point of accountability in policy and law, I really loved the last point that you made, Dunu, because in one of the submissions that I made to the Planning Commission when I was a member of that working group on child rights, I'd really like to share that document at least with you, if not with everybody, wherein I proposed that instead of calling these 20 people to a meeting once in 5 years to determine what was going to be the policy for children and how that's going to convert into a plan and a budget, why do you not invest perhaps in a public institution, perhaps a university which is constructed as a space which is a public space, not a premier ivory tower university. And this space is such that it enables dialogue, research, bottom-up conversations involving communities and families in a university setting. So what we're talking about is a different kind of a research, a different kind of a knowledge construction, a different kind of a policy making at least in state level, if not regional level, and from there is where our policy making goes right to the top. If we have a democratic, bottom-up, enabling, inclusive, public process, I say this because most of my work in law school for the past so many years has been in engaging with the process of either formulating or undoing lawmaking. And believe me, it is such an elite process. It's such an alien process to what actually we should be doing. So that document perhaps will be my answer to whatever you said last. The other points that I'd like to make in terms of within a democratic decentralization framework, how can children hold the state responsible? One of the posters that I had made some years ago is, should the juvenile justice system, we talk about putting juveniles on trial. The word trial is not used, but rhetorically speaking, I converted that into saying, should we put the juvenile justice system on trial? Because the system has to be on trial, the state has to be on trial. So I very much second your views on that. One answer we got from one of the professors of law from National Law School, who's still ready and waiting for anyone who will come up to him and say, I want to file what is called a case using section 166 of IPC, right? I think it's 166, wherein a public servant or an officer is failed to do his duty and therefore has to be penalized for it. Am I right? 166. So any of you are willing to go to court to bring a public official to account because of failure to do a duty? Section 166 has never ever been used in this country. It's there in the rule book. Why are we not doing it? So that is a legal option. Another legal option is what I spoke through in my presentation, where within the juvenile justice system, once children are already there, children can hold the state accountable if we have a great children's committee. Again, the law provides it in every institution. There is a provision for children to be part of decision-making processes in terms of management of the institution, in terms of abuse, exploitation, daily routine, food, blah, blah. This children's committee is connected to something called a management committee, again in every institution, that is supposed to be there by law. 2 children representatives on this management committee. In this management committee, you have representatives of the 2 judicial bodies, the CWC and the JJB. There is some possibility of a transformation that can occur through children's agency within the system, within the existing framework of law. We are trying in a humble way to work with CWC to enable that, to demonstrate that in one institution. I believe it is possible. Another option, which is not really a legal option, but it's I don't know what to call it, because you have something called the Supreme Court Committee on the Effective Implementation of the Juvenile Justice Act. So now the judiciary has stepped in, realizing that the executive has failed us completely, has stepped in to say, we are going to set up these committees at every state level and at the Supreme Court level to facilitate dialogue between state actors and civil society, not yet with children, unfortunately, to talk about what is going wrong. With the presence of these elite honorable judges, a lot of change, believe me, is happening. There is a positive direction, and I'm happy to share with you a report of a nationwide process that has just been concluded under the leadership of Justice Madan Lokur, where these conversations have resulted in some kind of a visioning action plan on how to transform the JJ system. There is a possibility of perhaps organizations saying, we're going to get children to talk about it and feed that into our at the State High Court Committee level as well. Okay. Yeah, voices of children. I think somebody was asking about voices of children. I was just talking in one of our groups that we're working together, the case studies in terms of what children experience through the system, the good and the bad, that needs to be documented to be able to speak directly to policymakers. And I say that as a powerful tool. We are using it to try and fight a huge battle against the transfer provisions in the Juvenile Justice Bill, which is sending our children to jail. The new bill, which is halfway through the legislative process, passed by the Lok Sabha, now at the doorstep of Rajya Sabha, needs people like you, needs the voices of children to perhaps make an emotional appeal to our members of parliament. Because even if I have to say it, we have done cutting-edge research using neuroscience, legal research, social research, psychological research, psychiatric information, and it's all there. It's impacted the Parliamentary Standing Committee. The Standing Committee has made an absolutely path-breaking report. I've never seen a report, the language that it has used, holding the executive responsible. Read that report. You have people who are willing to say what needs to be said, and yet we have a minister and members of Parliament do not spend the time that is required to make decisions when you're creating law. Law is created in a matter of minutes in Parliament. And actually, they are representing us. So where is Gram Sabha? Where are we when we're talking about a democratic process, when our MPs are not even listening? I think 1 or 2 more points. Yeah, this thing about sponsorship and aftercare, I think it was your question. Yes, the district child protection units, the village child protection units, etc., have a role to play, and if they are activated and if the rule says that there are funds and they are trained to perform that role, good. However, as per law, it is the CWC who actually is supposed to make the last decision on the quantum of foster care, of sponsorship, etc. So actually what we're talking about, Father spoke to you about being a member of the CW selection committee. I've also had the privilege of being there on 2 or 3 occasions. The kind of people who are being selected to these committees, what are the motives? Are they really social worker in a true sense of really having the best interests of children at heart? These are the people who are being appointed to these committees to make decisions that are legally binding and can only be appealed in a higher court. It is the CWCs. So if we really have to make a difference, we have to make a difference there. And I would end with the last point. I think we've mentioned some of this through our discussions in the morning, but I'd like you to see the parallels in 3 different legislations. This whole issue of, I think, Kannada-nalli helge agilla, nimdu question, safe and unsafe work, protection or autonomy, freedom. So the whole point is, at this very moment in our legislative history, if you look at what you and I would hope, would recognize as perfectly normal, healthy behavior of an adolescent to have a normal sexual interaction with another young person his or her age between 16 to 18 years old. Do we agree? Normal? Most normal. Underlined. And yet, I don't know how many of you are aware of POCSO. The Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act criminalizes consensual, that is, you are in love. This is a boyfriend and a girlfriend, or a boy and a boy, whatever kind of relationship, where through consensual engagement, you are in a sexual interaction with one another. The law is criminalizing it, and you will be produced before a juvenile justice board just like any other person who has allegedly committed a theft or a rape or a murder. So what is happening here? The POCSO has placed its money on protection and not on autonomy and free choice. Look at the Child Labor Act. Again, you're trying to protect children and remove choice. Look at the Juvenile Justice Act, it is completely the opposite. In the Juvenile Justice new bill that is coming up, a juvenile in conflict with law who alleged to have committed a serious crime that can attract a penalty of 6 years or more, alleged to have during this time of 16 to 18 years, can be pushed to a long and very ad hoc and arbitrary procedure which could land him or her in an adult prison. Why? Because Juvenile Justice Board is meant to make an inquiry whether the of allegedly committing that crime, allegedly committing that crime, not found to have committed a crime, it's still under inquiry, alleged to have committed a crime, the capacity of that child was that of an adult. So you tell me, you having a law that is at the doorstep of Rajya Sabha, which is based on an idea that people, like very many of the people in this room who are all fit to be members of the Juvenile Justice Board, are going to make an assessment of mental capacity and maturity at the time of allegedly committing a crime. And based on that decision, you're going to send a child to an adult criminal court, at the end of which, through a number of equally flabbergasting procedures, you could land up in an adult prison. So this whole debate is hinged on what is protection, what is capacity, what is maturity, what is capability, what is freedom, what is choice. Unless we have a theoretical frame that is informed by the experiences of the capabilities of children, of the resilience of children, of the dreams and aspirations of children and young people and their families, I think we'll be going round and round in circles.
She was talking about CWC and JJB selection. I remember when we had the selection of these people, there was only one person came with a recommendation. The moment we saw the recommendation was torn before that person. That means it's a huge responsibility of the civil society organizations from each district. Send people who are, I do not know this time to, I don't think this time I was not present for the selection committee. The people who have been really working in that level and who have come, I don't think their selection is rejected. Only thing, people who are capable have not come for the selection process. So among those who are available, we have selected. Another one, we talk about ICPS and DCPU. There are 12 staff members are supposed to be chosen from that particular district. And they are supposed to be from the civil society. Very important, capable people. Even NGOs can, add a little more money into. For example, if Arlen is very good in that particular district, give her another 5,000 more, so that let her be in the DCPU. That is better for someone who is able to actively participate in the programs of the district. I think we need to have somehow or the other, we need to have a lot of planning when you are having the people selected in the district NGOs and work so on.